Good afternoon. My name is John Jurgle. I'm the fire chief with Pompano Beach Fire Rescue. Today at approximately 14:57, our units were dispatched to the report of a plane crash into a house here in Pompano Beach. 11 units responded. When they arrived at 1500, they found one house engulfed in flames in the back half of the house, and two houses over, a plane crash or a plane that was also involved in flames. They effected a search and rescue of the house. They began to extinguish the flames of both the house and the aircraft, after which time there were 3 patients that were discovered that were passengers of the plane. There were 2 male patients, 1 female patient that were passengers of the plane. All 3 of those victims are trauma alert patients. They were transported to Broward General as well as Broward General as well as North Broward with severe burn injuries. That's all the information I have for you, unless you have some questions.
3 patients right now?
3 patients. The homeowner was home. There were no injuries. He had no injuries. He exited the house prior to our arrival. Nobody else was in the house.
Can you describe the nature of those injuries besides the burns?
They were all severe burn injuries, between 30 and 40% of their body.
Have they been able to give you any indication of what happened immediately before?
We do not have that. They're talking to the investigators on that.
How many people were in the house?
There was 1 gentleman in the house, the homeowner.
Only one house was affected by this crash?
1 house was on fire. There was some debris and things like that in the other houses, but the significant damage happened with 1 house.
Do you know if they were able to get out of the plane on their own, or did someone have
2 of the victims were out of the plane and they were assisted by a citizen. The 3rd victim may have been ejected from the plane and was helped to the front of the house, again by a citizen.
Do you know who was the pilot, one of the men?
I do not know that.
Do you know if they're local?
I do not know that. They're doing that investigation.
Do you know where they were going, or were they just staying within a pattern?
I believe they were in the pattern.
Can you confirm that they were practicing landings and takeoffs from the airport?
That is part of the investigation. I can't confirm that or deny that.
Have you heard anything from neighbors about any sounds or anything they may have heard beforehand?
We dealt strictly with the extinguishment of the fire and the treatment of the patients.
Did the fuel on board, if they were in the pattern, I don't know how long they've been up, did the fuel exacerbate the situation with the house?
Well, if there was a fuel leak, obviously, yeah, that's going to cause a problem for us. But the fire was extinguished fairly quickly, both in the house as well as with the aircraft.
Can you describe just how lucky, in a sense, a lot of the neighbors were, considering the time of day that it happened and you had falling plane parts before that plane actually hit the ground?
I think there's some very lucky people in Pompano. The gentleman that was in the house, obviously, when the plane hit his house, it actually bounced over 1 house and ended up in the yard of the next house. So obviously there were some very fortunate people.
To your knowledge, did the homeowner say anything to your paramedics as he's being transported?
The homeowner is not being transported. He's fine. The only people being transported were the passengers in the plane. The homeowner is fine, no injuries. The only issue for him is the damage to his house.
Can you tell us about the neighbors who tried to extinguish the flames before you all got here? How much of a help was that?
You know, that's difficult. You know, the assistance of the bystanders to help the victims from the plane was of great assistance to us. There was significant fire that was involved, and we always caution people with that to stay away from flammable liquids and planes like that. We appreciate their help, but once the fire department got here, it was quickly extinguished.
Were all of the victims conscious?
I believe so.
To your knowledge, I know you live in this neighborhood. You live next to an airport. Next to an airport. To your knowledge, have there been other wrecks recently in this area?
Recently, in the last 5 years, not so much in the neighborhood, but a few years ago, we had a plane crash over at the end of the runway by the airport, by the golf course. That is the one that is most recent in my mind. I could be wrong. I'd have to check the records.
Can you tell us anything about the nature of their injuries? Is anyone in a life-threatening
Significant
situation?
burns. And burns is, again, 30 to 40% of their body is burnt, so those are significant burns. Hence the reason they were trauma alerted to both Broward General and North Broward. They may eventually actually be transported to Jackson Burn Center.